Cutback for Vasilev and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen now to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal in his Union debut? The record signing! Off and running in his first appearance for the club!
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and listening to that intro, I love the new intro, but after the night that Milan Iloski had last night against Chicago Fire, I feel like we already got to redo the intro and get Milan added to that. Because what a performance Iloski had last night against the Chicago Fire as the Philadelphia Union snap a two-game losing streak or defeated streak, as they defeat Chicago Fire by a score of 4-0. And it was great. It was great to see the Union break out with 4 goals. Once again, they've done it now 3 times this season. It was good to see just 4 different goal scorers, right? And this is something that I think is going to be vital for this team going forward as they go into the playoffs. We've seen now with Iloski becoming the 18th different goal scorer in MLS this season for the Union. It's going to be key for this team. And yes, Tai Baribo gets on the score sheet, but this team shows you time and time again that they can beat you multiple different ways. And they get a couple goals last night from outside the 18-yard box. They get goals from inside the 6-yard box like they normally do. But this is a team when they're 1-1, when they're as good defensively as they were last night, as they are good at hitting you in those transitions, they're a team that's going to make you pay. And that's exactly what happened last night against Chicago Fire, which I don't know how many people realized last night, but Chicago coming into this game, they had 7 wins on the road, which was the second most in the Eastern Conference, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a team not to take lightly on the road. More wins on the road than they do at Soldier Field and SeatGeek Arena or Stadium, whatever they call it now. But yeah, this is a Chicago team that plays tough on the road, plays very, very tough on the road. And they had opportunities, and we'll talk about them. But it doesn't matter. You know, the Union, they created opportunities. They took advantage of their opportunities, a little bit different than what we saw last weekend against New York Red Bulls. And that's really been the key, right? Throughout different points in the season, we can point to the stretch of the Columbus Crew game and the Nashville game where the Union aren't really creating too many chances. New York Red Bulls last week, only 1 shot on target, which was the penalty kick with Bruno Damiani. And then last night, they explode for 23 shots, 8 on target. And you see the Union go off to a 4-0 victory. And the one thing I would say that's disappointing about last night is I don't know, honestly, what it will take, but I think overall the atmosphere has been pretty poor at Subaru Park. I mean, I'm not going to cookie cut it. It's been pretty poor, in my opinion, all season long at Subaru Park, which is so weird because, yeah, if this was last year where the Union only had 4 home wins, you would understand that. But they have 10 wins at Subaru Park, which is the tied for the first most in the Eastern Conference this season. And for the stadium not to be as loud as what we've seen in years past, and I realize, different people are protesting for different reasons. The cost of the tickets, if I'm not mistaken, didn't go up this season. But I know a lot of people in this fan base, they backed Jim Curtin and weren't happy with the way that was handled. But at the same time, it's like, I thought coming into the season that the best thing that Bradley Carnell and this team could do is win. You stop talking about Jim Curtin if you win. And I personally haven't heard too many people mentioning the name Jim Curtin because that's all the Union seem to do is win. And so I'm sure you have people protesting because they weren't happy with the way that Jim Curtin's firing went. You have some people that aren't happy with ownership, not spending enough money. I think that they absolutely crushed the transfer window in the wintertime. You only bring in 1 player in Milan Iloski in the summer window, which proves to be a hit already. And I know there were some people that probably wanted a center back, myself included. For whatever reason, that did not happen. And now the Union have to have the fingers crossed that Jacob Glesnes and Alawetu Makanya can stay healthy. Nathan Harriel is your third center back once again, and Neil Pierre, is he fourth on the depth chart? Does Bradley Carnell look someplace else? Is it not Neil Pierre? But all in all, this is a team that's winning, and they're winning in a very comfortable fashion, and it's disappointing. It is disappointing seeing that Subaru Park really isn't as energized as it's been in the past, in my opinion. So I haven't looked at the comment yet, so I'll see. I mean, I would love to see what you guys think. You guys maybe have only been to one game. Maybe you guys have been to a couple games. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how you believe the atmosphere is at Subaru Park this season, because I think it could be much better. Let's go ahead and pull up some comments. We have Jose saying, I missed the Prada jacket, Todd. Yeah, talking about Jim Curtin. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that Prada jacket, and Jim Curtin, he did have fashion, that's for sure. And didn't the team, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, didn't they like sign a deal or something, or have like a sponsorship with a suit company last year where the whole team was supposed to have suits? I forget. Mike Barrera says the atmosphere starts with Trey and Sons of Ben. So many people sit there without making any noise, chants, etc. Jazz says, to quote Bill Belichick, we're into Cincinnati. Jillian says, Neil had a rough day today in Union 2. Nothing. Love the name. The KSU did a really good job of getting the rest of the stadium involved. Sons of Ben doesn't do it as good of a job. KSU would do a simple chant to get others into it. Valerie says, good point. Mike says, agreed, nothing. Miss the ultras, which, yeah, that is a good point. I don't believe they've been at any game this season. Which you can definitely tell. You can definitely tell because that corner 140, the Sha La 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 chant, they started a few years ago. I mean, literally got the whole stadium involved, and it's completely different with them not being there. And it is interesting too, where you guys in the comment section correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't a ton of people on KSU. I don't even know if they took official members. If they did, it was like, what, 10? They would just get people involved that would sit over there and they would chant their way. And for whatever reason, yeah, the Sons of Ben, the rest of the people in trade just really can't get that going. And it's insane to me when you have a team that's as good as the Philadelphia Union this season, and you can't force people to show up to games. You can't force people to support. And the even crazier thing is, it's so cheap to get tickets on the secondary market. So cheap. And so it's like, if people are thinking last minute they want to go to a Union game, you can pick up tickets super duper cheap on the secondary market. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people out there, not saying that's a lie. I'm sure there's people out there that would be comfortable giving away tickets for free. Maybe not, but yeah, it's just so interesting to me, right? That the atmosphere, and I don't want to spend any more time talking about this. It's interesting that the atmosphere isn't great. It isn't great at Subaru Park, but the Union still find ways to go ahead and to get wins. Shaggy says, Big Head Dave Leonard's sign will bring the energy. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Valerie says, and they had a trumpet sometimes. Nate says, what do we need to do to get people to buy into more? They're playing really well. Yeah, I have no clue. I mean, everything you would want in a team that plays fantastic soccer, a team that plays entertaining soccer. What more does this team need to do to get people to buy back in? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But look, regardless, the Union are a completely different team than they were last year at Subaru Park, and yeah, I think that's for all you guys that go to these games, you people that watch on TV, that's all you guys could ask for, is just anything better than what it was last year at Subaru Park. But let's get straight into the game. As we know, the Union defeat Chicago Fire by a score of 4-0. Have a couple sound bites for you guys. One from Milan Iloski, two from Bradley Carnell. We do Blunder of the Week, which I forgot to clip. So hopefully I can clip it quickly throughout the show and everything, don't seem too distracted. because Blunder of the Week is something you guys do absolutely need to see. But I mentioned it in the intro that this was another 4-0 win for the Union, the third of the season, the first since match day 2 against Cincinnati, which we all know the Union go to Cincinnati this upcoming Saturday, which is a huge game. Don't want to talk about that yet. I do have something to say about that at the end of the show, but yeah, first 4-goal performance in MLS, because the Union, if I'm not mistaken, had 4 goals against Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the U.S. Open Cup. If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure one of you guys will correct me in the chat. But the first since match day 2 in MLS, and they actually did it back-to-back weeks against Orlando City and then Cincinnati, and now they finally do it once again against Chicago Fire. But the difference is between those 2 games earlier in the season, the Union keep a clean sheet, and that's huge for a team that hasn't kept a clean sheet in a little bit over 2 months. We'll talk about the injury to Pierce Holbrook. Can we call him the starting goalkeeper for Union 2? I mean, he's been playing a lot for Union 2, and unfortunately probably won't be the case the rest of the season. We'll talk about him in a bit. But yeah, it was huge for this team, I think, to get a shutout. Andrew Rick didn't have too much to do, had 2 saves. But the game could have been a lot different, right? The Union had an opportunity literally 29 seconds into this game to go up 1-0. You see Milan Iloski put pressure on Jack Elliott. Jack Elliott with a bad pass to Tai Baribo. Tai Baribo intercepts it. First time shot, puts it over the crossbar. I don't think Tai Baribo was expecting that, but unfortunately for them, can't put that one in the back of the net. About 5 minutes later, Baribo gets a second chance off of a turnover by Chicago, and the Union can't finish that off again. And then we see Chicago actually go down and have a chance. It starts with the right back who dribbles past a couple different Union players and then finds Brian Gutierrez. Gutierrez finds Jonathan Bamba out wide, and you have 1v1 against Frankie Westfield, who does a good job just to slow him down, to contain him, keep him in front of him. Jacob Glesnes steps out in front and then deflects a shot, and Andrew Rick has to make the save because of the deflection. And it's a really good save there by Andrew Rick, and just really good from the Union to not bend totally. And then obviously we see in the second half, after the Union get their first goal, Oriel has a shot that hits off the post in the 59th minute. You get a block from Macania on the cross from Hugo Kuipers. You have a block by Jacob Glesnes on Jonathan Bamba. And a little bit unfortunate for the Union that the ball falls to Chicago twice. They get a little bit of help by the post, but how different could this game have been? The Union are up, like I said, 1-0. If Chicago score in the 59th minute, it's 1-1. And did we start to see the Union panic a little bit? I know Milan Iloski talked about it with us in the locker room, where I asked him, didn't create too many chances against Chicago, didn't create a ton of chances against Toronto the following week. But then it was the complete opposite. 23 shots, 8 chances created by the Union in this game. And the Union finished off 4 of those 8 chances created. They did a good job. They did a good job finding the back of the net, and you're not going to have games where you're blowing out teams 4-5-0 like we saw a couple years ago, but they occasionally do happen. You do want to see teams get punished, and so many times this season, I'll be talking to people, and it's like, you wish the Union would go into the half up by multiple goals. It doesn't happen. They go in 1-0, and just like that, Chicago have a chance to tie this game up 1-1. And does now Chicago, do they sit deep? Do the Union panic? And unfortunately, we don't have to think about that because the Union scored 3 more goals. But this game could have been very, very differently if Chicago would have tied the game up in the 59th minute. But I think it's key for this team to get another clean sheet. Again, we'll talk about Frankie Westfield and Kai Wagner, the job that they did against Jonathan Bamba and Phillip Zinckernagel here in a little bit. But yeah, overall, I thought the team was really, really solid defensively. I mentioned it, Iloski, 18th different goal scorer to score for the Union in MLS this season, which is so absurd. Still the most for any team in MLS. And I don't want to bring up points that I brought up in the past before. It's like when other players are struggling, other players step up. Wasn't really the case this game. It was everybody scoring for fun. It was a free-for-all, and you love to see it. The one thing I do want to talk about is backup goalkeeper Pierce Holbrook injuring his knee in warm-up. Union held down to 3 goalkeepers. 3 goalkeepers or down 3 goalkeepers. Andre Blake's out injured. You loaned out Oliver Zemla. And now Pierce Holbrook, who signed a short-term call-up, now out injured, a knee injury. We'll get an update, I'm sure, sometime this week from the Union. Bradley Carnell said that Pierce was scheduled to have an MRI today on his knee. And man, when you go down on a non-contact injury, it's super scary to see. And you feel for the kid a little bit, right? Gets signed out of the Naval Academy by the Union, signs for Union 2, and gets a huge opportunity. With Andre Blake hurt, with Oliver Zemla now on loan, the Union need a backup goalkeeper to Andrew Rick. And it's unfortunate that he doesn't even get to make the match day squad, because as the goalies go out there to warm up, non-contact injury to his knee, and unfortunately didn't look good when it happened. And don't want to speculate, but when you have non-contact knee injuries, it's not good. And so it begs the question of what did the Union do? What did the Union do now with the backup goalkeeper? I saw some people say, well, can the Union go out and recall Oliver Zemla, who started, by the way, last night for North Carolina? I'd be shocked if that happens. I would be shocked. I have no clue what the contract looks like. Maybe there is no option to recall Oliver Zemla. I'm sure the Union could go into the pool goalkeepers. We saw it, I think, in 2019, where the Union had so many injuries to the goalkeeper. And I don't think too many people are going to remember this name, but the Union signed Charlie Lyon as a pool goalkeeper back in 2019, who was formerly with Orlando City, I believe it was, before the Union signed him as a pool goalkeeper. I don't even know. Is he done playing soccer? He last made an appearance in 2020, it looks like. So I guess I would be back in MLS. MLS is back, right? So before the Philadelphia Union, he was with LAFC, actually. And I don't know why I said Orlando City. He was never with Orlando City. I swear he was with Orlando City. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Union do. I mean, Mike Sheridan, I would assume, would be next in line with Union 2, sign him to a short-term contract. There's a couple academy goalkeepers. Do the Union feel like they're ready? Do they want to throw them into the spot to be the backup to Andrew Rick? I saw a comment before the show started, which you guys were absolutely blowing up the chat before the show started. I love it. Valerie, Michael, Jose, I think I saw was in it too. Where was the comment? I can't even find it. It was so early before the show started, I think. But Michael had said that Nathan Harriel was the backup goalkeeper last night, which is exactly what Bradley Carnell said, which is so interesting. We're in the press box trying to figure out who's the backup goalkeeper. I'm like, maybe it's Jacob Glesnes. Somebody said Chris Donovan. I'm sure some of you guys on social media said the same thing, that, yeah, Chris Donovan would make sense. But somebody had mentioned, yeah, Nathan Harriel, just because of how athletic he is. He has a good jump and everything. And yeah, I guess there is no more questioning, because and Bradley Carnell said, yeah, it would have been Nathan Harriel. And that would have been the worst case scenario for the Union if Nate has to go into the goal, because God forbid Andrew Rick would have got hurt. But would Nathan have been the maybe in MLS, the player to play the most positions in a single season, because he's played as a left back, he's played as a right back, he's played as a center back, he's played as a 10. And if he would have played as a goalie, that would have been 5 different positions this season that Nathan would have had to have played. But it is good to have versatility, and we'll talk about that in a bit with Milan Iloski. But man, it's horrible. It's horrible to see Pierce get injured, and we'll go ahead and see what the Union do. Again, we'll wait for an official announcement, which I would assume will come probably mid-week. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Pierce, because worked hard to get to this point, and yeah, injuries have paved a way for him to take advantage of this. And yeah, in warm-ups, you're just warming up, and to get injured, yeah, it's really, really difficult. Jillian says Joe Bendick was there last night, goalkeeping coach with Chicago. Get him to suit back up. Yeah, it was interesting running into Joe after the game. Joe saying hi to all of us walking out of the press box. And yeah, it looked weird not seeing him in Philadelphia Union gear, wearing Chicago Fire gear as the assistant goalkeeper coach. Zach Thornton, back with Chicago Fire, has been back since 2022, I believe it is. Was formerly with Chicago, but he left to go to Houston. Now he's back with Chicago as the head goalkeeping coach. And then Joe Bendick joined Greg Berhalter's staff this offseason to become the assistant goalkeeper coach. And it was nice seeing Joe Bendick last night. Shaggy says, what happened to Francisco Mantelli? Selected 82nd overall, was a 2-time Patriot League Goalkeeper of the Year during his time at Boston University. Where's Jose when you need him? Isn't he? There's no way that he's with Vermont. There is no way. He is playing. I forget what team he's at, and I'll look it up real quick. If Jose was here, I know he knows. He would correct me already. I saw Jose was in the comment section. Mantelli is with San Jose Earthquake. He's with San Jose Earthquake. Interesting. But again, I mean, you have options. Mike Sheridan, Alex Smith, I believe, is a goalkeeper with the Union. Cole says, didn't someone just release a decent goalkeeper? Didn't Charlotte have to release a goalkeeper, or didn't they release a goalkeeper since they signed Drake Callender from Inter Miami? Michael Warfinger says, was wondering why Nate didn't play last night. Yeah, that's exactly it. Jillian Almany says, fun fact, I heard from someone today that Stas was considered an emergency goalkeeper. And Nate can do it all, that is for sure. Shaggy says, never mind, he's with San Jose. Talking about Francisco. Michael says, Nate is a Swiss Army knife. Jazz says, favorite Bendick moment, watching him stand there with Cleberson nailed that free kick. Yeah, the Bendick face, right? Cole says, never mind, doesn't seem so decent. So, yeah, I mean, the Union got to figure out something that they can do for backup goalkeeper. But what I'm upset about, I don't know if you guys saw this, but New York Red Bulls, they traded for John McCarthy. And McCarthy goes for a 3rd-round draft pick. Now, yes, the Union don't have any draft picks because they traded them all away in the offseason. But I'm sure you could have gave like minimum amount of game to get McCarthy back. I know for a fact that the Union tried to get McCarthy back in 2024. Didn't wind up happening. Goes to LA Galaxy. Union wind up signing Oliver Zemla. But I think the fans, like, even though McCarthy, and here we go again, mentioning the 2022 MLS Cup, even though he was the MVP in that game, helps LAFC beat the Union in penalty kicks, you guys would have welcomed him back. I think that would have been a fantastic backup goalkeeper for the Union. And yeah, I mean, McCarthy probably would have been number 2 to Andre Blake the rest of the season. And that would be unfortunate for Andrew Rick. But at the same time, I've said so many times here on the show where Andrew Rick doesn't need to be playing MLS Next Pro, needs to be playing consistently at a higher level. Yes, he's playing more than probably what he would have thought because of injuries to Andre Blake. But next season, you got to loan Andrew Rick, in my opinion. You got to get him playing at a higher level. And so McCarthy, why not? Why not go out there and make that trade to LA Galaxy and try to get him in? I mean, a 3rd-round pick, you're basically giving him away for free. So just unfortunate that McCarthy goes to Red Bulls. Unfortunate. So unfortunate. Cole jokes and says, we could have gave Chris Donovan. Shake my head. Matt says, could have traded those international roster spots for McCarthy, but he could have been a distraction. Yeah, would have loved to have seen McCarthy back. Just popping in to say, Frankie out shithouse Akasa, and I got Dora to see him get face of the week. Yeah, I did see Doyle say that. That was excellent from Frankie Westfield. Nate says, honestly, I think we should consider starting Rick full-time next year. Am I crazy? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think Andre Blake is losing his starting spot anytime soon unless he retires. And I don't see Andre stopping playing soccer until the World Cup and Hopefully for his case, Jamaica makes it. Contract expires after the end of the 2026 season, has an option for 2027. So, yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about Andrew Rick way too much, so I don't need to talk about what I would do if I was in charge for Andrew Rick. But turning from a negative with Pierce Holbrook into a positive, and maybe this is a little bit of a negative too, because Milan Iloski had such a strong game last night for the Union. This is such a difficult decision, I think, for Bradley Carnell now for his starting 11. I mean, with how well that Iloski played last night, he's got to be a locked-in starter, in my opinion, going forward, right? He played so well last night, and yes, he gets a goal, he gets an assist. The assist is a little bit cheap, just rolls the ball out to Kai Wagner, who scores a wonderful set-piece goal to give the Union a 2-0 lead. But how? Honestly, how can you say, nope, I'm not starting you this week to Iloski when he plays that well? And I know Bradley Carnell's a manager that likes to rotate his squad, isn't afraid to rotate his squad. But you finally have another player. And I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast where we saw during the Gold Cup when Quinn Sullivan wasn't here, the Union really didn't have a player that could take players on 1v1. You just have Kai Wagner creating chances. But now you have a player in Iloski, Quinn Sullivan. Both players love taking players on 1v1. They have great dribbling ability. And honestly, I didn't know that Iloski was that great of a dribbler until last night. Complete 6 dribbles, the most of any players in the game. Created 3 chances last night. Really strong defensively. And so you add the chance creation from Quinn, the chance creation from Kai, and now Iloski. Teams want to play low blocks? That's fine. Iloski will take you on 1v1. He'll create space. Quinn Sullivan, he'll create space for teammates. Both players aren't afraid to shoot outside the box. We see the Union get 2 goals outside the 18 last night. And so for me, it's like, how don't you start him going forward? He's a locked-in starter, in my opinion. I would love to hear what you guys think on that. I think a lot of you guys in the comments would agree that Iloski should be a starter going forward. Now, the question is, should he be a starter as a number 10 or should he be a starter as a striker? Because I think number 10, and as Cole says it right here, says, has to be Iloski at the 10 next to Quinn. Sorry, Indy. I do think that Iloski's better as a 10 than he is as a striker. You made the comment to me on Twitter earlier in the day, Cole. I agree 100%. Jazz says the opposite. Play Iloski up top with one of the center forwards. Michael says, I like Vasilev, but Iloski just has the attacking quality. Indy doesn't. Shaggy says, Indy out, Milan in. Michael says, although you can swap in out for Damiani too. Jazz says, I don't get this Sullivan love. Michael says, Quinn had some wild shots last night, confusing first half from him. Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement, and people that are listening back to the podcast, you guys would say the same thing, that Iloski has to start. He has to start. Yeah, Quinn maybe carelessly gives the ball away. Maybe he gives the ball away too cheaply. Maybe he takes wild and reckless shots. But, I like to see a player that's confident like him taking players on 1v1. Quinn last night could have got the assist to the assist if Baribo would have headed the Frankie Westfield cross in. Danley Jean Jacques does put in the rebound to make the Union go up 3-0. But just seeing players that can take on players 1v1 and have the confidence to do that. And so Bradley Carnell last night was asked about Iloski and his versatility, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, if you look at him, he's not a target striker. He hasn't got the physique for a target striker, but he has the physique of being a mobile, technical, gifted footballer. And we see a lot of qualities. He can accelerate our transition game. And we've been a bit disappointed with our shots within 10 seconds from turnovers. And I think today we got 5 within 10 seconds. So that was probably one of our season's best. And then again, we do that by not being reckless and wild in our defensive posture, right? So we have an attacked a bit of a balance when we're attacking, and we give away, I think 0.6 xG. So not too much. I know they hit the post from a shot from distance. We knew coming into it we have to block shots, block crosses, and I think we were determined for that today.
Yeah, and so you hear Bradley Carnell say, though, that it starts defensively for the Union, and I don't disagree with that whatsoever. And a big part of what the Union were doing defensively was because of the work rate from Milan Iloski. And that's what you need to do to be a player that can fit into this team, a player that's going to get starting opportunities week in, week out. You got to work your tail off defensively. And that's why I think partially why Indiana Vasilev has been so consistent in getting starts this season is because of how well he is defensively for this team. Yes, we've talked about it before where we wish the chance creation would be a little bit more from Indy. And I had said to somebody last night in the press box when I was looking at stats, I can't believe that Indiana Vasilev has the same amount of goals this season in MLS as Mikhail Uhre, 4. It's crazy. I thought Uhre would have 1, maybe 2 more goals than Indiana Vasilev, but I don't want to turn this into bashing Mikhail Uhre. It's not been the greatest season for Mikhail in terms of goals and assists, but yeah, I was shocked to see 4 goals. I don't even think I could tell you all 4 games that Indy scored in. Could you guys? But yeah, it's got to be Iloski, I think, replacing Indiana Vasilev. And yeah, Bradley Carnell, like I said, we all know he's a manager that's not afraid to rotate, change things up. And some games you see Iloski start, some games you see him come off the bench. You see Indy start, but I don't know. After a performance like last night, how do you not start Iloski the rest of the way? Matt says, I think Iloski's signing is perfect so far. Quinn's numbers after coming back from Gold Cup haven't been what they should be. Should create solid competition the rest of the season. Shaggy agreed with that comment. Jazz says, Quinn has a few games. He factors and disappears for weeks. And maybe the Gold Cup, making that Gold Cup roster played a big factor into Quinn having as good of a first half season that he had. Michael says, Iloski's shot, he had 4 defenders on him outside the box, still made the goal unreal. I think Quinn is just pressing too much, trying to force his influence in the game. Michael says, Quinn on one side, Iloski on the other was a force to reckon it with. Nate says, I agree, Shaggy. Some of those shots were doing just a bit too much. Jazz says, Indy is a defensive worker bee, but the press is better when he is in it. I agree. Shaggy says, Indiana is to Carnell what Pretoria was to Curtin. He is safe space. Ooh, that's a good one. That is definitely a good one. But yeah, 23 shots last night for the Union, 12 of them outside the 18-yard box. And this was interesting too. I was going to ask about this last night to Carnell, but he was asked about it. He spoke about it a little bit, talked about how, yeah, taking shots outside the 18 gives the Union momentum. And I've talked about it before where sometimes it feels like the Union are just taking shots outside the 18 just to take shots and not taking these game-changing shots. Sometimes they get blocked. Sometimes they're not on target. And a lot of you guys, I think, would comment a lot of that's due to Quinn Sullivan just not putting shots outside the 18 or on target. But the Union are second in MLS in terms of shots outside the 18 with 166. And they're tied for the most goals, tied for third for the most goals outside the 18 with 8. They scored 2 this game, one with Kai Wagner, then one with Iloski. And yeah, it was a beautiful strike by Iloski. And I don't know if you guys mentioned this or saw this. I mentioned it in my goals breakdown video, which I'll release right after the podcast, where you saw Jack Elliott, you saw Christopher Cups, the other center back just dropping deep, and allowing space, allowing the Union to take their shots outside the 18. And yeah, a lot of those shots were either getting blocked or on target. I mean, this is a team that's not afraid to shoot from distance, and they're a team that gets 2 goals last night. And so again, if you're a team that wants to play a low block, if you're a team that wants to drop deep, you have Quinn, you have Milan that aren't afraid to break you down dribbling. How many players did Milan dribble past last night on a shot in the first half by Quinn Sullivan? It was like 4 players, I swear. And so having that ability, having that confidence is only going to help the competition, but then help the team going forward into the playoffs, right? And so we know that the chances aren't going to be many in the playoffs. And so it's going to take moments like that where you can beat players off the dribble, create space, create opportunities for your teammates. And I do think that Kai Wagner, Quinn Sullivan, and Milan Iloski are going to be key for that for the Union. And so I'll wrap up just talking about the versatility for Iloski. I do want to say a stat because you guys know I love stats. It does leave Carnell with a unique situation. We talked about it. You had mentioned it, Shaggy, that Bedoya was the curtain what Indy is to Carnell. Indy started 17 out of his 25 games played this year in MLS. It does seem like Bruno Damiani and Tai Baribo is the preferred starting forwards as they made 10 starts up top with each other. Quinn Sullivan's made 20 out of 24 starts this year for the Union. And so, yeah, I mean, it does seem like Bradley Carnell has some players that are just automatically locked into this team. The center backs don't count because of the injuries and everything. And Kai Wagner doesn't count because of who Kai Wagner is. But we see that Bradley's not afraid to switch his number sixes up. He's not afraid to change his forwards up. But this late into the season, do you really want to be tinkering with that? I don't think so. I think you want to have momentum going for it. You want to have chemistry going into the playoffs. 6 games left until the end of the season, I believe it is. Or is it less than that? You guys correct me. Season is ending fast. It should be 6, right? No? Am I wrong? I don't know. That seems wrong. There's no way there's 6 games, right? Now I'm about to look it up. I'm not confident with saying that. Maybe it is 6 games. Man, you should know this. They play Cincinnati, then it's Vancouver. Then after Vancouver, it's New England, maybe? Then after New England, DC, then New York City, and then Charlotte. That sounds about right. That's 6 games, right? I think that's the schedule. I couldn't pull it up. You guys will correct me. But yeah, I don't know. Will Bradley Carnell rotate this squad? Will he change things up the remaining 6 games of the season? I mean, anything's possible, right? He wants to create competition, keep players motivated. So maybe he does, but I don't know. Leaves him with a unique challenge situation with Iloski. But Milan, after the game, spoke to reporters for about 7-8 minutes, and he shared something very interesting with us, which I wasn't aware of. He said not many people were aware of, and I'm sure this will come to a surprise for many of you guys. So Milan absolutely tore it up when he was with UCLA when he played in college. 23 goals and 43 appearances because he played so well with UCLA. Real Salt Lake gave him a homegrown contract, but he didn't really play that much with Real Salt Lake. Stayed there from 2020 and 2021. After the 2021 season, they declined his option. And Milan shared with us after the game that he almost gave up soccer. He almost quit after his time with Real Salt Lake. And he talked about when he was looking for his next team after him and San Diego couldn't come to an agreement on a permanent deal. He wanted to go to a city that was vibrant. He said he wanted to go to a city that had a strong fan base, a strong culture. And most importantly, he wanted to go to a team that was contenders. And in his opinion, the Philadelphia Union checked every single one of those boxes. And so he's extremely grateful for the opportunity to play for the Philadelphia Union. Grateful for every opportunity that he's been given so far under head coach Bradley Carnell. But this is this is Iloski talking about how it was pretty difficult for him after RSL, and he almost gave up playing soccer.
Not a lot of people know, but when I was when I left Salt Lake and I didn't play at all, and there was COVID and all this stuff, I didn't really want to play soccer anymore. I went to Orange County just like I wanted to have fun, and I've only went there because my brother was there, and I was closer to home, and I was a little bit fed up with the politics of soccer and how things went, and so for me every day is something I'm grateful for, and I'm so lucky to do this job. I love it more than anything. I've loved it since I was a little kid, so I think now for me it's just enjoying it, taking it day by day, and I'm so grateful to the people in my life that have helped me get to here. And for me now, I just want to keep pushing and take advantage of the chances I'm given.
Yeah, I mean, just so interesting to hear Iloski say that he almost gave up playing soccer, and he goes to USL Championship side Orange County. He rediscovers his love for the game, scores an impressive 43 goals and 70 appearances. Does so well that it earns him a move to Europe to Danish side. I said it last episode, not going to try to repeat it again. but then he eventually gets sent on loan this season with San Diego, his hometown club, 10 goals and 14 appearances. And they can't come to an agreement on a long-term deal. And so goes back to Europe and signs for the Union. And so the Union just seemed to know how to get the right players with the right attitude, just really good locker room guys. And that's a credit to Ernst Tenner and the scouting department, just knowing exactly what they're looking for, players that are going to be team before myself. And it really does seem like Iloski is the latest example of that. And I joked about it in the intro where maybe we should have changed the intro and added a Iloski goal. Maybe we should go and change the intro up and and just add Iloski's goal now, because I think he's going to quickly become a fan favorite. I think there is the real possibility that he could be the difference maker this year for the Union to win a trophy. I really do believe that. And I'm not just going off of because of what he did last night, but it's like every time, it feels like every time that he comes into a game, he is making a difference. We saw it against New York Red Bulls last weekend, where he plays as a number 10 and then, or as a striker, sorry, and then he plays as a number 10. He gets switched with Chris Donovan, and I did think he was creating chances. I do think he was making a difference against New York Red Bulls. Unfortunately, the Union lose that game. Don't want to talk about it anymore, but yeah, it makes a difference for sure last night against Chicago Fire. So yeah, super happy with Iloski. Super happy to hear him say that that he's happy to be playing soccer again, and he's happy to be in Philadelphia. And yeah, I do think that if the Union are going to win a trophy this season, I think Iloski is really going to be a big part of that. Let's see. Michael says, I can't believe San Diego passed up on him. Shaggy says, right. Couldn't agree on money, Michael, which is what Jazz says. Yep, absolutely. Michael says, neither can the fans by the comments. 10 goals and 14 out west. Gazdag upgrade. Yeah, absolutely. Didn't one of you guys make a comment about that earlier in the show? I don't know. It's so far up there. I can't even find it. You did say it. You did say it earlier in the show. Michael, you said maybe too early to say, but is Milan an upgrade from Gazdag? Yeah, I think so. And I saw somebody on Twitter. I don't know who said it. And maybe it's somebody that's listening to the podcast. Maybe it's somebody that's listening to it live. But they said the Union essentially got Indiana Vasilev and Milan Iloski to replace Daniel Gazdag. And isn't that the truth? And maybe I should link it in the show description, because I don't know if you guys heard it yet. Bradley Carnell's appearance last week or 2 weeks ago on Soccer Wise with David Goss. Towards the end of the show, Bradley Carnell was talking about how the Union finally have the replacement for Daniel Gazdag and Iloski. That there is a lot of similarities between the two, but I don't know. I think maybe Iloski fits his system, the style of play, better than Daniel Gazdag did. I think the pressing's a lot better. I think the chance creation's a lot better than what Daniel Gazdag was in this system. I have a lot of love for Daniel Gazdag, but yeah, early on it does indeed, Michael. It does seem like an upgrade over Daniel Gazdag. Valerie says his great attitude counts for a lot. And Jazz says Gazdag just didn't fit Carnell's system, turned 30 and wanted a bigger bag, which you can't blame him. You only get one career. Shaggy says, if Milan becomes a huge difference maker, give Tanner his flowers. I don't know. I feel like Tanner, I mean, he's crushed these last two windows. A lot of people were saying he was washed. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he's crushed, I would say, his last three windows, because last summer, bringing in Danley Jean Jacques, he's been a huge player for the Union this season. So, yeah, Bradley Carnell, Ernst Tanner, they seem to work well together. whatever Ernst Tanner gives Bradley's like, yeah, I'll make it work. And yeah, it's been working so far this season for the Union. But what do I want to end with? Frankie Westfield and Kai Wagner. Yeah, they had a big game last night. Both guys had huge games last night, going up against Jonathan Bamba and Phillip Zinckernagel, who has been such a big player for Chicago Fire. In my opinion, probably been their best player. And this is a Chicago team that's not as bad as they looked, in my opinion, last night. You know, they have players: Bamba, Zinckernagel, Hugo Kuipers, Brian Gutierrez, Jack Elliott's been okay for the most part this season. Not great. I think Haile Selassie is a good player. I think Kellen Acosta coming off the bench, you know, having MLS experience. I mean, they have players. Chris Brady isn't as bad as he was last night. This is a team that I think honestly will make the playoffs finally, which is crazy to say because Chicago's missed it how many years in a row now? They're a team that's floating between 9th and 10th, and they just got to correct their home form. And on the road, they're one of the better teams. I mean, last night, if that's the first time you watch Chicago, you wouldn't say, yeah, they're one of the better teams. But yeah, to see Frankie Westfield and Kai Wagner both shut down two of the better wingers, I would say, in MLS, and two of the difference makers for Chicago Fire. They had a really, really solid game. And Bradley Carnell was asked about Frankie Westfield, but he was quick to sing the praises of Kai Wagner as well last night.
Really good. You know, I think even Kai, you know, both of the outside backs to shut those guys down for 90 minutes is a tough ask. And then they bring some speed on the last line with Tom Barlow and what have you. And, you know, just to the body checks, seeing balls run out of bounds and just to have the attitude and the positive arrogance of what it means to play here in Philly with the fans behind our back here at Subaru Park, and teams feel that, the opponent feels that. Every player I speak to after the games, and it's not just now, they know how tough this place is, and that's kind of what we pride ourselves on, being tenacious, showing the passion, what it means, and then that galvanizes us. It brings us together in order for the clean sheet and 3 points. I mean, yeah, 1 week it's going to go away, 1 week it might not, but we've shown a bounce back ability that's that says a lot for the group.
Yeah, absolutely. They needed to bounce back after their last two games against Toronto and New York Red Bulls. And yeah, talking to the players after the New York Red Bull game, they were disappointed. They were hurt. And they had a big performance last night against Chicago. And again, you hear Bradley Carnell, you heard Jim Curtin say the same thing over the years, really. It starts with this team defensively. If we're good in our defensive transitions, we're going to have success. And a big part of that last night was Milan Iloski. A big part of that was the two number sixes. A big part of that was the fullbacks for the Union, shutting down Jonathan Bamba and Zinckernagel. Quick stats, nothing matters. 1 out of 2 tackles, 1 for Kai Wagner, because stats on everything. I think the eye test is what's most important. 4 out of 5 ground duels, 1 from Kai Wagner last night. Really, really solid. Frankie Westfield, 3 out of 7 ground duels, 2 out of 4 aerials, 1. 7 ball recoveries for him. We also saw 1 block from Frankie Westfield. Kai Wagner, on the other hand, recovered 5 loose balls. And so, I mean, these are guys that are both offensive. Frankie Westfield, unfortunate not to get an assist on his cross into Tai Baribo in the second half last night. But you go ahead and look. You go ahead and look. And yeah, it's a big performance by the fullbacks. And yeah, there was a moment in the first half where Kai Wagner doesn't track back, where Jonathan Bamba has a shot, deflects off of Glesnes, and Andrew Rick makes a save. You have Zinckernagel, who's wide open on the left side of the field because Kai didn't track back. But Bamba, he went on this crazy run, receives the ball from Brian Gutierrez, and he had one thing on his mind, was shoot. And Jacob Glesnes did a good job to just throw himself in front of the ball and block the shot. And yeah, both of those guys really, really were really solid last night. And it's a good problem for Bradley Carnell to have, right? Do you start Frankie Westfield? Do you start Nathan Harriel? They both offer something a little bit different defensively and offensively. And we know why Nathan Harriel doesn't come in last night at all, because he's the backup goalkeeper. But again, I mean, just seeing the commitment how this team has, I would say they're too deep in every position. Too deep. Maybe not center back. Maybe not left back either, unless you want to consider Nathan Harriel the backup left back, and Nathan Harriel, yeah, obviously is the backup center back, but they probably did need to bring in one more center back, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen. But look, transfer window's come and gone, but everywhere else, I think they are too deep, and you don't really lose too much, in my opinion, when you try to close out games. Kevin Sullivan brought new life and energy last night when he comes off the bench. You see it with Alejandro Bedoya closing out games, helping close out games. Jeremy Raffanello making an appearance off the bench. I mean, you got players that don't play a ton of minutes, but they know their role. They know it's, hey, let's go out there. Let's close this game down. Let's make it tough defensively for the opposition. If we're chasing a goal, then we know exactly what needs to be done. And yeah, this is a team that I think, I said it earlier in the show, if I was Bradley Carnell, I wouldn't really tinker with the lineup. But just seeing that's how Bradley Carnell rolls, it's probably what's going to happen. Cool. Nothing from Donovan coming off the bench. Yeah, I didn't want to mention Donovan, but you mentioned him. You mentioned him. There's no way Chris Donovan comes back next season, right? There's no way. Sexy Hoagie says, are Union finally hitting peak form at the right time? Let's hope. 6 games remaining. Let's hope that they can continue to get results, build chemistry. That's why I wouldn't change the lineup going forward, because you want to have this team locked in come playoff time. But yeah, it is nice to see this team be locked in, and let's hope. Let's hope that they can continue to have positive results. That game this upcoming week against Cincinnati, it's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere. It's going to be a playoff-like game. I mean, this is for Supporter Shield, and this is the type of game that the Union want to be involved in later on. And they've had success earlier in the season against Cincinnati. Before that, they really struggled. Yes, I know they defeated Cincinnati because Cincinnati's focusing on the CCC. They rotate some guys out and everything. You need to take advantage of it. And Brenner, I don't know if you guys saw this, right? He's coming back to Cincinnati, and that's scary to think about. Evander, Brenner, and Denke leading the front line for Cincinnati. Definitely added firepower, and we'll see if those 3 guys can just gel chemistry as Cincinnati pushes for the playoffs. And we'll see, does Brenner play against Union this upcoming weekend? But before we end the show, before we talk about Cincinnati, or what I want to mention about Cincinnati that I didn't just mention, it's Blunder of the Week. It is Blunder of the Week. And I told you guys that I needed to go and find this clip. And the people that don't listen or watch the podcast, you guys are really missing out, because I do try to make it a habit to show clips when I can. And I hope Apple doesn't take this down. You know, we've done this a couple times, and so far we've been good. But in last night's game between Vancouver Whitecaps and St. Louis City, Vancouver winds up winning that game 1-0. And it was such a bad call. Vancouver gets a late penalty. Thomas Muller scores the goal, scores the penalty. Good penalty. His penalty in the 102nd minute helps defeat St. Louis City 3-2. But this wasn't initially called a penalty on the field. And VAR says, you know what? You should probably go ahead and have a look at this. Kevin Terry Jr., the VAR for this game, says, you know what? I think there's something in this. Go ahead, have a look, even though you didn't call a penalty on the field. And so, again, I'm aware that there's some people that just listen to the podcast audio-wise, so I'll try to talk over this. But, yeah, here's a clip for you guys. I mean, it's not... It all happened super duper fast right there, and we'll see a better replay, and I'll play it. But there is absolutely zero contact on this play. I mean, it's so bad. No contact whatsoever. He literally falls. He trips over air. The Vancouver player just trips over air. I'll show that again, because it's just a joke. I mean, the ball gets played for it into the penalty box, and then he just goes to ground, no penalty called on the field. And that's a credit to the referee for saying no penalty, no, get up, play on. But for VAR to say, never mind, I think that there's something in this. Go have a look. And then for the referee to come back and say, that is a penalty. There was zero contact. Zero contact. Zero contact. And again, maybe I didn't do the best job describing it to you guys on audio, but again, I'm trying to convince you guys to watch the podcast, to go back and watch the video, because you guys are missing it. My God. I mean, talk about a flop. Talk about selling it. And for VAR to say, I think there's actually something in it. Send the referee to the monitor and the referee to say, actually, that is a penalty. What are we doing?
Yeah, not good.
No, not good at all. And I saw some people saying that, this was scripted for Thomas Muller to get his first goal. And Michael says here, he says they just wanted Muller to get a penalty. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous that non-contact, zero contact on the play from St. Louis on the left back, I believe that was, for Vancouver. I mean, ridiculous. Vancouver gets all 3 points. They're a good team this year, don't get me wrong. But if you're a St. Louis City fan, I mean, you feel so hard done. So hard done. 49 points this season for Vancouver, with a record of 14-6-7. They trail San Diego by 4 points, who are in first place. Clinched a playoff spot last night, by the way. First team in MLS to do it this season. But such a bad call on the field. And, man, refereeing's not been great in MLS. It hasn't been great for a while, I feel like. But, that's refereeing, I think, all over the world. There's bad calls all over the place. And I saw on Reddit this morning that people in Europe were just having a ball, just having so many digs at MLS. And it's like, the truth is, like, there's bad calls like that in the Premier League all the time. There's bad calls like that worldwide. I mean, we've shown pretty bad calls here on the podcast in the past. So I have no clue how that was given as a penalty after it was initially said no penalty on the field. And then they go to VAR and say, penalty. Michael mentions it better be Mascherano coaching from the fan section on his suffering during the last League's Cup game against Tigres. And that's actually what it was going to be, Michael. But because of how horrible this penalty was, I was like, there's just no way. There's no way that this cannot be Blunder of the Week. So all you guys in the comment section are agreeing that is not a penalty, a horrible call. Jazz says Turf Monster tripped him. Yeah, absolutely. Which I'm surprised that Thomas Muller has no issues playing on turf in Vancouver. I think he was asked about that, and he said, no issues whatsoever. So, a terrible, terrible call last night in last night's Vancouver Whitecaps and St. Louis City game. But that's the life of refereeing, right? It's like we have all this technology, and yet so many times we see so many bad calls. And I know you guys would have been heated if that's what would have happened last night, or you guys were heated in the Houston game for sure. So if something like that would have happened in the Union game, you guys would not have let the world hear the end of it. And I'm sure we would have talked about it on the podcast. But an hour into the show, I appreciate all you guys commenting on the live feed on YouTube, on Twitter. You guys are always the best part of the show. If you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. Live every single podcast on YouTube. You can also find the Goals Breakdown videos there, which the Goals Breakdown video will be coming out right after the podcast. I just need to go ahead and upload it to YouTube. So give it like 15, 20 minutes for it to upload. It's about 18 minutes long. Hopefully I have no issues whatsoever getting that uploaded to YouTube. Because a lot of good stuff to break down in last night's game, just like we broke it down here on the podcast. And then if you guys want to go ahead and check out my writing, the Goals Breakdown, or the podcast all in one place, you can check out thefreekick.substack.com. Now, the one thing I wanted to say about Cincinnati I'll be appearing on Cincinnati Soccer Talk on Wednesday night. I'm not sure if that's going to be live. If not, just type in Cincinnati Soccer Talk. You guys can find it on YouTube. If not, you can find it wherever you get your podcasts and everything. I'll be joining them over there, previewing the FC Cincinnati versus Philadelphia Union match. I do kind of want to try to get somebody on for Cincinnati. We'll see how my schedule is this week. It's a little bit hectic. Definitely going to be an emotional week, that is for sure. But we'll see if I can find it in my schedule to get a guest on for the Cincinnati Philadelphia Union game. If not, you guys know to always come back in on Sunday. Check us out as we're live the day usually after the games. Hopefully Jose Nunez, who was going to join us tonight, but I was like, I'm recording at 8 o'clock tonight. So Jose wasn't able to join, as you guys have obviously told throughout this whole podcast. So hopefully we can get Jose back for Cincinnati, and hopefully the Union can at least get a point. Need to get a point against Cincinnati. It's a huge game next week. And again, I thank you guys so much for all the comments on the show. I thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. I thank you guys for just always leaving comments on the video and for always supporting my work. So you guys mean a lot to me, and hopefully I continue to give you guys coverage that you guys find enjoyable. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.